Senator George McGovern's words. George McGovern, this is who Hubert Humphrey actively ran against. These neoliberals can't stand anybody with progressive principles. And he's not perfect. But, when it came to the war, when it came to poverty, he actually wanted to get rid of it. So they called him a radical. Wait, you want to get rid of poverty? What kind of radical are you? Would you want to stop the war? What kind of radical is you? All right, without further ado, Chairman O'Brien, Chairwoman Burke, Senator Kennedy Siegel. Shit. Chairman O'Brien, Chairwoman Burke, Senator Kennedy, Senator Eagleton, and my fellow citizens, I'm happy to join us for this benediction of our Friday sunrise service. I assume that everyone here is impressed with my control of this convention and that my choice for vice president was challenged by only 39 other nominations. And I can tell you that Eleanor is very grateful that the Oregon delegation at least kept her in the race with Martha Mitchell. So I congratulate you on your patience, and I pay my respects to those two superb presiding officers of this convention, Larry O'Brien and Yvonne Braithwaite Burke. So tonight I accept your nomination with a full and grateful heart. This afternoon I crossed the wide Missouri to recommend a running mate of wide vision and deep compassion, Senator Tom Eagleton. I'm proud to have Tom Eagleton at my side, and I'm proud to have been introduced a moment ago by one of the most eloquent and courageous voices in this land, Senator Ted Kennedy. My nomination is all the more precious, and that is a gift of the most open political process in our political history. It is the sweet harvest of the work of tens of thousands of tireless volunteers, young and old alike, funded by literally hundreds of thousands of small contributors in every part of this nation. $27 average for Bernie Sanders, so that's the same. Those who lingered on the brink of despair only a short time ago have been brought into this campaign heart, hand, head, and soul. And I've been the beneficiary of the most remarkable political organization in the history of this country. It is an organization that gives dramatic proof to the power of love and to a faith that can literally move mountains. As Yeats put it, count where man's glory most begins and ends, and say, my glory was I had such friends. And this is the people's nomination, and next January we will restore the government to the people of this country. 1972, America said Nixon over giving a shit about poverty or giving a shit about the war. They voted for Nixon twice. The second time they voted for Nixon over McGovern because he cared about the poor. He cared about the war. So that means he's too radical. And he's not even that radical. Just on maybe those two issues. And radical just means fundamental change. He fundamentally wanted to end murder, death, destruction. He fundamentally wanted to end poverty. Okay. So this is the people's nomination. Next January, we're going to restore the government. I believe that American politics will never be quite the same again. We're entering a new period of important and hopeful change in America, a period comparable to those eras that unleashed such remarkable ferment in the period of Jefferson and Jackson and Roosevelt. Let the opposition collect their $10 million in secret money from the privileged few, and let us find 1 million ordinary Americans who will contribute $25 each to this campaign, a million member club with members who will not expect special favors for themselves, but a better land for us all. In the literature and music of our children, we are told to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. And for America, the time has come at last. This is the time for truth, not falsehood. In a democratic nation, no one likes to say that his inspiration came from secret arrangements by closed doors. But in this sense, that is how my candidacy began. I am here as your candidate tonight in large part because during four administrations of both parties, a terrible war has been chartered behind closed doors. So that's Nixon, LBJ, JFK, Dwight D. Eisenhower. I want those, and Truman too. They're all responsible for Vietnam. I want those doors opened, and I want that war closed, and I make these pledges above all others. I think this is going to be better. The doors of government will be opened, and that war will be closed. Truth is a habit of integrity, not a strategy of politics. And if we nurture the habit of truth in this campaign, we will continue to be truthful once we are in the White House. Let us say to Americans, as Woodrow Wilson said in his first campaign of 1912, let me inside the government and I will tell you what is going on there. Wilson believed, and I believe, that the destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite. It's better in the hands of the people than the elite. So let us give your country the chance to elect a government that will seek and speak the truth, for this is a time for the truth in the life of this country. And this is also a time not for death, but for life. In 1968, many Americans thought they were voting to bring our sons home from Vietnam in peace. Since then, 20,000 of our sons have come home in coffins. I have no secret plan for peace. I've got a public plan. And as one whose heart has ached for the past 10 years over the agony of Vietnam, I will halt a senseless bombing of Indochina on inaugural day. Nixon, on the other hand, he had a secret plan. He had a secret plan to get you out, and actually he extended it and bombed more. So the same conditions prior, he didn't change nothing. He thought he was going to win through strength. Nope, didn't change anything. So, and then Watergate. Good fucking guy, man, America. You really picked it on. You didn't listen to Hunter S. Thompson, right? Oh, well, he cares about poverty and war. And then this is going to landslide. America is not going to only embrace Richard Nixon like crazy fucking crack addicts, but they're going to shit on McGovern. Even after he got had to resign, right? He got busted for Watergate, had to resign, and people are still going to be like, well, McGovern was better than Nixon, you stupid fucks. Fuck. Y'all missed a moment there. A bright, shining moment we had in our country. There will be no more Asian children running ablaze from bombed out schools. There will be no more talk of bombing the dikes or the cities of the North. And within 90 days of my inauguration, every American soldier and every American prisoner will be out of the jungle and out of their cells and then home in America where they belong. And then let us resolve that never again will we send the precious young blood of this country to die trying to prop up a corrupt military dictatorship abroad, like in Egypt and Israel and everywhere we go. This is the time. Cameroon, Gabon. This is also the time to turn away from excessive preoccupation overseas to the rebuilding of our own nation. America must be restored to a proper role in the world, but we can do that only through the recovery of confidence in ourselves. I treasure this nomination, especially when it comes after vigorous competition with the ablest men and women our party has to offer. My old and treasured friend and neighbor, Hubert Humphrey, that piece of shit, a gracious and good man from the state of Maine. Ed Muskie, a tough fighter for his own convictions, Scoop Jackson of Washington, and a brave and spirited woman, Shirley Chisholm, a wise and effective lawmaker from Arkansas, Wilbur Mills, and the man from North Carolina who over the years has opened new vistas in education and public excellence, Terry Sanford, the leader who in 1968 combined both the travail and the hope of the American spirit, Senator Eugene McCarthy. And as I was moved well by the appearance in the convention hall of the governor of Alabama, George Wallace. Really? George McGovern, you're going to bring in George Wallace, that Confederate fucking piece of shit. Right? Too radical, right? He's too radical. He's embracing George Wallace. That is radical. Embracing a white supremacist piece of shit. So there's a criticism from the left of George McGovern. His votes, George Wallace in the primaries, showed clearly the depth of discontent in this country and his courage in the face of pain and adversity. This is McGovern on George Wallace. In the face of pain and adversity is the mark of a man of boundless will. Despite the senseless act that disrupted his campaign, and Governor, we pray for your full recovery so you can stand up and speak out for all those who see you as their champion. Now, in the months ahead, I deeply covet the help of every Democrat, of every Republican, of every independent who wants this country to be great and good land that it can be. This is going to be a national campaign carried to every part of the nation, north, south, east, and west. We're not conceding a single state to Richard Nixon. I should like to say to my friend Frank King that Ohio may have passed a few times in this convention, but Tom Eagleton and I are not going to pass Ohio. I shall say to Governor Gilligan, Ohio is sometimes a little slow in counting the votes, but when those votes are counted next November, Ohio will be in the Democratic victory column. Now, to anyone in this hall or beyond who doubts the ability of Democrats to join together in common cause, I say never underestimate the power of Richard Nixon to bring harmony to Democratic ranks. He is the unwitting unifier in the fundamental issue of this national campaign, and all of us are going to help him redeem a pledge he made 10 years ago, that next year you won't have Richard Nixon to kick around in anymore. So that was 1960 versus JFK. He lost to JFK. Now you won't have Nixon to kick around anymore. But we can kick him around, and now 10 years later, he's the damn president. We have our fury and our frustrations in these past months and at this convention, but frankly, I welcome the contrast with the smug and dull and empty event, which will doubtless take place here in Miami next month. We chose this struggle. We reformed our party, so we let the people in. So we stand today not as a collection of backroom strategies, not as a tool of ITT or any other special interest. So let our opponents stand on the status quo while we seek to refresh the American spirit. I believe that the greatest contribution America can now make to our fellow mortals is to heal our own great but very deeply troubled land. We must respond. We must respond to that ancient command, physician, heal thyself. Now it is necessary in an age of nuclear power and hostile forces that will be militarily strong. America must never become a second-rate nation. As one who has tasted the bitter fruits of our weakness before Pearl Harbor in 1941, I give you my pledge that if I become president of the United States, America will keep its defenses alert and fully sufficient to meet any danger. We will do that not only for ourselves, but for those who deserve and need the shield of our strength. Our old allies in Europe and elsewhere, including the people of Israel, who will always have our help to hold their promised land. Yet I believe that every man and woman in this convention hall knows that for 30 years we've been so absorbed with fear and danger from abroad that we have permitted our own house to fall into disarray. We must now show that peace and prosperity can exist side by side. Indeed, each now depends on the existence of the other. National strength includes the credibility of our system in the eyes of our own people, as well as the credibility of our determinant in the eyes of the others abroad. National security includes schools for our children, as well as silos for our missiles. So national security. We're going to build schools in the domestic situation and silos for the missiles. So he says for national, he wants a strong military. A strong military. What a radical. He's in favor of George Wallace, a Confederate right-wing, white supremacist piece of shit. How radical. It includes the health. National security includes the health of our families as much as the size of our bombs, the safety of our streets, and the condition of our cities, and not just the engines of war. If we someday choke on the pollution of our own air, there will be little consolation in leaving behind a dying continent ringed with steel. So while protecting ourselves abroad, let us form a more perfect union here at home. And this is the time for that task. We must also make this a time of justice and jobs for all of our people. For more than 3.5 years, we have tolerated stagnation and a rising level of joblessness, with more than 5 million of our best workers unemployed at this very moment. Surely this is the most false and wasteful economics of all. Our deep need is not for idleness, but for new housing and hospitals, for facilities to combat pollution and take us home from work, for better products able to compete on vigorous world markets. The highest single domestic priority of the next administration will be to ensure that every American able to work has a job too. That job guarantee will and must depend on a reinvigorated private economy freed at last from the uncertainties and burdens of war. But it is our firm commitment that whatever employment the private sector does not provide, the federal government will either stimulate or provide itself. Whatever it takes, this country is going back to work. America cannot exist with most of our people working and paying taxes to support too many others, mired in demeaning and hopeless welfare mess. Welfare mess? He's against welfare? Wow, what a radical. Therefore, we intend to begin by putting millions back to work, and after that is done, we will assure to those unable to work an income fully adequate to a decent life. Now, beyond this, a program to put America back to work demands that work be properly rewarded. That means the end of a system of economic controls in which labor is depressed, but prices and corporate profit run sky high. It means a system of national health insurance. National health care in 72, national health care. So that, like the rest of the fucking world, so that a worker can afford decent health care for himself and his family. It means real enforcement of the laws so that the drug racketeers are put behind bars and our streets are once again safe for our families. And above all, honest work must be rewarded by a fair and just tax system. The tax system today does not reward hard work. It penalizes it. Inherited or invested wealth frequently multiplies itself while paying no taxes at all. But wages on the assembly line or in farming the land, these hard-earned dollars are taxed to the very last penny. There is a depletion allowance for oil wells, but no depletion for the farmer who feeds us or the worker who serves us all. The administration tells us that we should not discuss tax reform in the election there. They would prefer to keep tax reform. They would prefer to keep all discussion of the tax laws in closed rooms where the administration, as powerful friends and their paid lobbyists, can turn every effort at reform into a new loophole for the rich and powerful. But an election year is the people's year to speak, and this year the people are going to ensure that the tax system is changed so that work is rewarded and so that those who derive the highest benefits will pay their fair share rather than slipping through the loopholes at the expense of the rest of us. Let us stand for justice and jobs and against special privilege. And this is the time to stand for those things that are close to the American spirit. We are not content with things as they are. We reject the view of those who say, America, love it or leave it. We reply, let us change it so we may love it the more. We say, we clean our own houses because we love our house. You don't clean your house because you hate it. You clean your house because you love it. So let's clean house. That's what you're supposed to say, to love it or leave it. I'm cleaning my house. I'm making it better. You're against progress and making shit better? What the fuck is wrong with you? And so this is the time. It is the time for this land to become again a witness to the world for what is just and noble in human affairs. It is time to live more with faith and less with fear, with an abiding confidence that could sweep away the strongest barriers between us and teach us that we are truly brothers and sisters. So join with me in this campaign. Lend Senator Eagleton and me your strength and your support. Together we will call America home to the ideals that nourished us from the beginning, from secrecy and deception in high places. Come home, America, from military spending so wasteful that it weakens our nation. Come home, America, from the entrenchment of special privileges and tax favoritism, from the waste of idle lands to the joy of useful labor, from the prejudice based on race and sex, from the loneliness of the aged and poor and the despair of the neglected sick. Come home, America. Come home to the affirmation that we have a dream. Come home to the conviction that we can move our country forward. Come home to the belief that we can seek a newer world. And let us be joyful in that homecoming, for this is your land and this is my land. From California to New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. So let us close on this note. May God grant each one of us the wisdom to cherish this good land and to meet the great challenge that beckons us home. Now is the time to meet that challenge. Good night and Godspeed to you all. It's George McGovern, 1972 Democratic Convention speech in Miami, Florida. Miami, Florida, July 14th. Miami Beach, Florida, July 14th, 1972. America. And America's been fucking up. That's when we got super delegates, and the Democrats never got a George McGovern since 72. Bernie Sanders was close, but basically that's why he got fucked over, because the anti-McGovern legacy of the Democratic Party. I mean, since McGovern, what liberal Democrat have we had? Not fucking Hubert Humphrey. Hubert Humphrey was, again, he's a neoliberal, not Dukakis. Maybe Mondale, but Mondale's kind of, Kerry, what the fuck? Al Gore, these are neoliberals. None of them said, you know what? Come home, America. We're against the war. We're in favor of alleviating poverty. We want a war on poverty, and we want to stop the war in Vietnam. But that was too fucking radical. Stopping wars, too radical. Caring about people's too radical. Fuck you. 1972 America, you picked Nixon over McGovern? Fuck you, you stupid ass pieces of shit.